Joining us now is Vice Chairwoman of America First Political Action Committee, Kimberly Guilfoyle. Kimberly, saw you in Iowa a few weeks ago in Des Moines. You did great. Great to have you with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be on your program. So much going on right now, in the news with the confirmation battle, of course, of Brett Kavanaugh. And it's really appalling because the standards that the Democrats are using and the smear tactics are really unprecedented. And when you think that it couldn't go any lower, they've done that in this particular case. And you just mentioned moments ago about how, preeminently qualified Judge Kavanaugh is to hold this position of United States Supreme Court Justice. And he was just incredibly, brilliant and dignified and composed and really just has all the qualities and qualifications we need for someone to be an outstanding justice. The country would be lucky, to have him. But for the Democrats, what Republican, they would never put in anyone. There's nobody that they think that would be a conservative candidate, so to speak, and actually uphold the Constitution, follow the law, not legislate from the bench, uphold the Constitution as written, somebody with the background like he does, and yet they still, have such problems with his qualification and standing, and now you have the new information of this accuser from 35 years ago.
Kimberly, what do you think of this new allegation?
Senator Dianne Feinstein brought this up, I think, without properly vetting it and even checking it out, and something that was from 35 years ago, and it's unbelievable. Now we're hearing that the accuser is willing to testify before Congress. Okay, well, come forward, tell your story. Why didn't you come forward then with the facts and the specifics? And all of a sudden now, Dianne Feinstein brings it forward, turns it in to the FBI. This is something they had declined to investigate. And I think it's just, more reputational smearing that they're trying to do for an upstanding man who's already served his country and worked so diligently and so successfully and with honor for this country as a judge for all of these years. And now you have this being the sole focus. And, nobody has any information about this. It just seems very suspect.
Well, I think it does, too, without discrediting Dr. Ford here. I mean, 35 years ago, no witnesses, didn't tell anybody at the time. The only witness was Kavanaugh's friend, allegedly, and he's denied it. Judge Kavanaugh has unequivocally denied it. And so I guess what's very troubling to a lot of people, Kimberly Guilfoyle, with this is this can happen at any time. I mean, all you have to do is say, well, somebody did something back when they were 15, 16, or 17 in high school, and that becomes a disqualifier. I mean, it just seems to a lot of people, the timing of it seems suspect. And again,
right.
Not making any disparaging comments toward Dr. Ford or what she may have thought happened or what the motivation
Correct.
is. It just doesn't feel good to people.
No, it doesn't. Because here's the problem. And as a former prosecutor, when you see something that is that comes up during a particularly, contentious political time, like, putting someone forward here, a nomination, a confirmation hearing, very hard for Judge Kavanaugh to be able to defend himself, for this to be, get all the facts, information out when so much time has passed, right, in terms of people being able to recall, being able to investigate it, talk to other witnesses. People may not be around, may not be able to locate them. Now, of course, not to minimize if something happened, sure, okay, she could go ahead then. Let her be heard, and subject to, questioning on this. But it just seems like that this type of thing is just going to continue to happen over and over again, and they are just determined to try to not allow President Trump to have his, nominee go forward and be confirmed.
Kimberly, do you think
no matter what?
Do you think that the Judiciary Committee vote scheduled by Chairman Chuck Grassley at 1:45 on Thursday should go forward, or do you think, Kimberly, it should be delayed?
Well, it's tough to say. We'll learn more, today. The problem is, you have to see where the votes are, et cetera. And now they're saying if this woman is going to come forward, that she would, in fact, I mean, she has to, I guess, be heard. I mean, otherwise this will linger over his head, and sadly, so I think at this point we have to make sure that everything is, checked out and vetted, and he has to be given the chance to be able to defend himself. But can you imagine what he must be going through in his family right now? And for something that there was a witness that said it didn't happen as well.
That's the thing. I mean, you've only got one witness there, and that was the other fella who Dr. Ford alleged, jumped on the bed, and the bed fell down, and they all fell on the floor, whatever, drunk. Now, all this is alleged. But so you've got two people that were there and one witness, and the witness says it never happened. The person accused said it unequivocally didn't happen, and there was nobody else there. And it comes out 35 years later, and they were in high school, and they allegedly were at a party, and beer was flowing. And I don't know. The whole thing is very suspect to me. But look, Jeff Flake has already said he's wavering on the Judiciary Committee. He could throw the nomination into chaos. I mean, if he votes no, there is no nomination. It's done. He's going to have to get renominated, and it throws the whole thing into chaos.
That's the problem, and you're mentioning that earlier. So a lot of people are calling into Jeff Flake's office now because of this exact development that you've discussed. And again, I just want to say it's just very difficult in terms of being able for somebody to, prove, that they're, innocent. I mean, it's unbelievable. And you're supposed to be, innocent until proven guilty. This man now has the burden of trying to go back and essentially, recreate 35 years ago and make sure and find out if anyone else that could come forward to say that this, didn't happen. I mean, it's very disturbing to me that, just in general, just on a broader level, that people can make accusations like this and so many of them anonymous sources to smear people and try to ruin reputations. And it's become a whole cottage industry now.
Well, you're right. And now, as you say, Dr. Ford has said she is willing to testify before Congress. So now this thing just turns into a complete mess because now the Republicans' hands are tied because they're going to have to get her story out. I mean, you just can't say we're not going to do that. So I don't know how this is going to play out.
That's the problem. That's exactly what you said right now. Because if they do not, then they are, they're being disrespectful to women. They're not taking allegations seriously, et cetera. So that will be the criticism from the left. Oh, they're trying to sweep this under the rug. Here, the person's willing to come forward to testify, et cetera, et cetera. So then they say, well, how can you say, no, we won't have her testify because then, you haven't heard her story. It shows that you don't care. You're not serious about this. So then it, smears Republicans in general on a larger level. Right. So they have really no choice but to say, okay, let's hear her, her testimony. Let's hear what she has to say and hear her story. And it becomes a whole sideshow.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right because, look, the Republicans are in a bind here. You're exactly right, Kimberly. Guilfoyle, if they don't have the hearings, just what you said will happen. And if I can tell you that my opinion is that if Jeff Flake votes no and the nomination dies, the turnout for Republicans in the midterm is going to get depressed because you're going to have a lot of people just saying, look, I voted for Trump in order to stop all this nonsense, and now I'm still getting it. And so why bother to vote for any of these Republicans? So they're really in a box here. We'll have to see what plays out. And, once it comes down, once again, to Jeff Flake or somebody in Arizona, oddly enough. And, of course, we know the history there between Flake and the president, so that plays into it. What a mess. Let's get on to some other topics. Kimberly, your former prosecutor, we've got the Manafort plea. Basically now some people saying, okay, this is bad for the president. But I've got a different take. I don't think Manafort has anything because there is no collusion. So maybe he just cut a deal. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, he cut a deal, for things that he did years and years ago, some stuff back in 2006 that has nothing to do with President Trump or nothing to do with his campaign or anyone else involved. So what is the big news here? I mean, what the reality is there's been, a witch hunt going forward now, millions and millions of dollars spent, no evidence whatsoever of Russian collusion and no evidence that there's anything that Manafort pled to that has anything to do with collusion of the president or his campaign. So, I think this is, again, the Democrats just trying to, stir the pot and make something out of nothing. I mean, with all the leaks that you have these days, the New York Times or Washington Post or somebody would have had, evidence of this or some story or some kind of suggestion, et cetera. Instead, we don't have anything like that whatsoever. So, again, I think it's just it's a distraction again, trying to undermine the president and his economic agenda and all the things that he's promised and, in fact, delivered on so that he can just continue, to move forward, to take care of the American people, the forgotten men and women that certainly the Democrats have left behind, and they want to try and undermine him at every opportunity that they get. And this is just another example. It's like every day. It's like a three-ring circus where they try to distract and get you to look over there and try to get all the resources and distract the president so that he can't do the things that he needs to do to help this country. And it's just a shame.
It is a shame. I want to talk about the potential FISA document declassification. And a lot of us believe, Kimberly, that this FISA was obtained under false pretenses, and the judge that signed it had no idea or was not told by the FBI or whoever went to the FISA court judge. Of course, it's a secret judge. We don't know who it is. But still, I mean, I believe in the judicial system in the United States and judges. And so, it's possible that this judge signed this FISA warrant without knowing that the basis of the allegations from the government was coming from a fake dossier that they paid millions of dollars in Oppo research, both the DNC and the Clinton administration. What do you think declassifying these documents will do, Kimberly?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very telling. I think it's going to prove exactly, what you've discussed. And I don't think, and whoever proffered it, should be in big trouble, because when you put forward knowingly, false information like that, whoever did it, should be disbarred. What is going on around here that they tried to do? Can you imagine? Can you imagine if that was, President Trump's campaign that did something like this? And provided it to the government? There would be uproar, left, right, and center. It's just outrageous right now to think that evidence was put forward that was actually paid for by the DNC, by the Hillary Clinton campaign, okay? False evidence of a dossier that's been discredited, and to be able to infringe on people's privacy rights and try to obtain wiretaps. It's shocking and appalling to me.
Shocking, appalling, and we still don't know what the genesis of this was or whether or not the judge made a decision, based on the false information. That's why I'm in favor of releasing the documents so then people can see. That's just going to clear it up, right?
I totally think it's going to clear it up. The sooner the better, and I believe that information will, in fact, come out.
Kimberly, let's get to Lisa Page, former FBI lawyer involved in the Peter Strzok, Lisa Page nonsense that went on with all those texts about people that stink in Walmart that were voting for Trump and the whole bit. That's kind of falling under the radar screen this weekend with everything going on. But Lisa Page basically saying, look, I had, the FBI had all of the resources available to them for a 2-year period, surveillance and everything else, and could find zero evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. This is one of their own investigators saying this. Yet this development is nowhere to be found in the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, or anything else.
No, it's such a great point. No evidence of collusion was found. You can't say that there was any evidence of collusion. This is what we've been saying all along. With any of the information that's come out, it's pointed to one conclusion: no evidence of collusion. No collusion. Okay? Instead, what there is evidence of is this, like we talked about, with fraudulently obtaining FISA warrants. Okay? And wiretapping on a campaign. It's just unbelievable to me. And then a witch hunt for anyone even associated with the campaign or the president. But nobody wants to talk about the fact that one of the agents and the information coming forward saying that, in fact, no evidence of collusion. This was somebody that was looking for it any which way they could find it, that had a stated bias and a sole objective to find this information to stop President Trump, then candidate Trump.
Unbelievable.
It's just shocking. But that just shows the bias of the mainstream media.
What happens now, Kimberly?
Well, I think we'll be able to get the information from, what in fact was put forward for the FISA warrants. I think that, we've got to go into now midterm, elections. And I think, absolutely that essentially President Trump is on the ballot. When we campaign across the country, I make it very clear to people that, listen, it's not just, your candidates on here. We need people that are strong, in the House and Senate that are going to support the president's agenda, because if Nancy Pelosi and her like get the, House back and she's the speaker, can you imagine? They will try to impeach the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. It's that crazy right now. I mean, literally, it's like they're trying to, overthrow in any way, shape, or form possible, a duly elected, seated president of the United States.
Their goal is to drive President Trump from office, period. Anybody that says anything else is just not rooted in reality. Midterms. I've got a half a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think will happen?
I have to well, let me tell you something. Look, I see tremendous, I'm not kidding you, tremendous support out there. Everywhere we go and we campaign, and I've been on the road with Don Jr., state to state, people show up and they're super excited and enthused. They're very happy with the president, with his economic accomplishments. It's been unbelievable, record low unemployment for women, for blacks. There are more jobs available than there are people to fill them. Okay, so it's the Trump economy is booming and working. And I hope the people come out to support that and keep this going, because that's what the country deserves. And from what we're seeing, I think it looks good. And I just don't want it to be sidetracked now with the Kavanaugh, confirmation hearings and what we discussed earlier, and then in any way for that to depress, voter turnout. But I think that people have to keep the eye on the ball, which is, the president in the White House. And no matter what, they have to show up to support him.
We're out of time. I want to thank Kimberly Guilfoyle for being with us. She's the chairwoman of America First Action Political Action Committee. Kimberly, it's always great to have you with us. Thank you so much.